Welcome to More Precious Than Rubies, where we explore the lives of remarkable women who inspire us with their courage and dedication. I'm Ariana, and today's episode is a special one. We're joined by my dear friend Christy, who is a mom, wife, musician, and supervisor of formulations manufacturing at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Christy, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for being here and blessing us with your story.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you about my life and just my journey in general.
I am so excited to kind of bring people into your story because we've known each other for quite a bit through kind of different and fun ways. So just so people can get to know you a little better, can you share a story that you have in mind of a way that we're connected?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. There's so many, but I think I want to say my favorite story of us is how we figured out how we knew each other.
Yes.
Because I started in the Palomar concert band. Mm-hmm. And then I can't remember if you were there before me or not, but we had seen each other across from each other because
yes.
You're clarinet, I'm flute.
Uh-huh.
And, never really talked to each other because, I don't know. That
right.
would be
unless you're
awkward.
sitting next to the person, it's like hard to just go up to someone and say, hey, how are you doing?
Right. And so, and then we had Spanish together at Cal State San Marcos, and we sat next to each other, and I was like, how do I know you? And you're like, I don't know, but you look so familiar. And then we figured out, I think we saw each other in band that next week, and we're like, this is how. It's just my favorite thing because it's so random.
We had a meet cute. I think that's really just what it is.
Yeah.
It was a meet cute.
That's why we're still friends.
It is. Yes, Christy was in my wedding, and we've just enjoyed band together. My dad and you still play together in the band sometimes. And I am just thankful for your friendship because past high school and college, I didn't meet a lot of musicians that still practice their instrument. And through your many encouragements of me coming back to band, I've been bad and I have not come back and done it yet.
We'll get you there.
I know. Christy's asks me like every single time that I see her. So one of these, and my dad does too. So one of these days you guys are going to break me down, I'm sure. But it's just so fun to share such a long-ended passion with someone else. And especially, it's just so nice to have that person be kind of in the same age range or even older. Like you are older than I am. Mm-hmm. And I've been thankful to have such a close friend that's in kind of the life stage above mine. You've been such a good example and role model to me of like what a mom means.
Thank you.
So that's just been really fun for me to have your friendship and share things like musicianship. Now, Christy, let's dive into your story. So can you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do at Thermo Fisher Scientific?
So actually, we can rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
When I started in college, I started at community college at Palomar, actually. Uh-huh. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I knew that I wanted to do something in the science field. And so I ended up taking a bunch of science classes, transferring to Cal State San Marcos, kind of on this path of I want to have a biology degree.
Okay.
And I think I want to do optometry. So I did all of the bio classes. Uh-huh. Actually, like if I could have concentrated in anything, because there's concentrations that you can do at Cal State San Marcos within biology, I actually could have done all of the concentrations because I took all the classes.
Wow.
But that's beside the point. I mainly focused in like physiology.
Okay.
Because that's kind of the path that you would want to take for optometry.
Okay.
Just understanding the human body, animal bodies.
Right.
And I took human anatomy, human physiology, which wasn't offered at Cal State San Marcos unless you're in the nursing program. So I had to go back to Palomar, do those there. And I was like on the path to optometry school. And around the time that I graduated, I had been working in a few optometry offices. I worked in a corporate office and then I worked at a private office. So it was kind of nice to get a feel for both of those, just to see like what kind of practice would I want to do if I was an optometrist. I graduated college, my husband and we had been married for, gosh, how long was it? I think 3 or 4 years at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he had gotten into the electricians union down here in San Diego.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And the closest optometry school was Fullerton, with no guarantee that I would make it into that school. So I think at that point we were like, okay, this is the time in our lives that we think we want to start a family. Mm-hmm. It just didn't make sense for me to go to optometry school.
Yeah, to do that and then to start a family and then go on to school. Sure.
Yeah. So I kind of went away from that idea a little bit. And I decided to start applying to different biotech companies.
Okay.
And the tough part about that is if you don't have experience, you're probably not going to be interviewed.
Oh, okay.
But you can't get experience unless you get a job somewhere.
Classic spin around.
Yeah, there's a catch-22, and it's very unfortunate. I feel for the people in entry-level, like trying to get into entry-level biotech roles. It's so tough. I think I searched for 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
With only 3 interviews. My last interview was at Thermo Fisher Scientific. My manager at the time took a chance on me, knowing that I had no experience in the lab, right? Although Cal State San Marcos, they have really good lab programs, which is pretty nice.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and so she took a chance on me, started in the lab there. It was great. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I kind of just worked my way up into people leadership.
Yes. You've been there for quite some time now, and you've kind of just like walked up the ranks of into leadership.
Yeah, I've been there for a little over 6 years, actually 6.5 years now.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but honestly, what the company stands for, I really agree with it morally. Mm-hmm. So I like it there.
Great.
But yeah, so that's basically my very long-winded story of how I got to where I'm at right now as far as my career goes.
Yeah, and you also, I mean, like Christy mentioned, she has passions for other things too. Like you have passions for animals. Mm-hmm. That was another way we were connected, honestly, is because of our love for dogs and animals, and music as well. So maybe you can kind of give a little example of what you find so fulfilling about your daily work, or even your passions, if you want to go into that as well.
Yeah. It's changed a little bit since I've been out of the lab. When I was in the lab, we work with antibodies, I should say.
Okay.
We still do. We work with antibodies, which to me, having the science background that I have in immunology and stuff, it made sense as to how we were impacting the world in a positive way.
Yeah.
Right? So, for example, a really good example is we had custom products that we would make. Mm-hmm. So basically, we'd make these custom antibodies, send them to research groups, and during COVID, those research groups were working on like figuring out how they can help slow the disease, get some kind of vaccine going, etc. And so that was really cool to me. I felt like I was making a difference in the world. Now as a people leader, it's a little more indirect, right?
Sure.
I'm not working on the products myself, but I think one thing that I find very fulfilling is I work with a team of 12 people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have a good connection with each of those people, and I try my best to help them kind of see their potential within their career and whatever they want to do from a career development standpoint. I do my best to help them get to that point and to kind of really reiterate that to them. Hey, obviously, like, we want you to do your day-to-day, but I'm here to help support you in whatever it is that you want to do in your future. Like, help me help you get there.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's one thing that I find very fulfilling. When it comes to music, once a week we have rehearsal. I wish I could do more, but I just don't have that kind of time right now.
Yeah.
But my dad has always explained it in a way where basically he says, like, whenever you're feeling sad, whenever you're feeling anxious, anything like that, you can always pick up your instrument and play, and it just kind of goes away. And that's always kind of stuck with me because it's so true. Like, it's just like, it's a way to kind of get away, right? And in a healthy manner. So I feel like my weekly routine in band is just
It's like a good reset.
Right. It's a great way to just let it all go. Like, it's kind of towards the end of the week. Yeah. So you can just let all the stress of the week kind of fall off, and it's nice.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that I've talked to a couple musicians on the show already, and I think we've talked about the impact that it has on students as well, and just their learning capabilities. And I think that you're right. When you can put your attention into a hobby, especially like music, it's just your brain is only focusing on one thing, and you can really only think about that one thing for however long you're playing for.
Right.
So I think that you're right. It's a great way to kind of like get rid of the stress from the week and be with people who have a similar passion. And it kind of just makes you feel like, yeah, okay, this is great. This is a fun time to be together in something that we enjoy doing and making something beautiful together. That's what I love about music.
Same.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Christy. I've truly seen your passions and even just your work continue to progress. And I love seeing your passions continue over the years. So now let's go a little bit more into what makes you you. So the first question is, you recently shared a post to your Instagram story encouraging people to start a note on their phone called "Good Things Are Always Happening to Me" and to add to it every day. So what is something you would add to that list for yesterday?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like there were a couple good things that happened yesterday.
Go for it.
First, I got to pick up Flynn early from school. It was for a doctor appointment, but it was still nice to be able to hang out with him for a little bit, like just him and I. So I would say that was a good thing. Second, he got the flu shot. He was so sad about it. And then they pricked his finger to like check his blood.
Are the worst.
Yeah, and he was very offended by this. He was not okay. After that, we hugged each other. I tried to console him. Asked him if he wanted ice cream. I asked him if he, wanted to do something fun or to get some new light up shoes because there's a new Skechers store down the street.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was not having any of it. He's like, I just want to go home. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You know what? Let's just go home.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. He's very homebody-ish.
Okay.
The opposite of me, but that's okay. That's okay. He gets it from Nick. But we got home, we sat down. He's like, I just want to sit with you on the couch, Mama. And so I would say that was another good thing that happened because we just got to spend some like cuddling time together. I turned on a little Disney Halloween movie. We watched that.
I'm sure that your son appreciated the ability to just enjoy you in the space that he's comfortable in. So that's really nice that you got to do that for him. And I'm actually very proud of him for not choosing ice cream because when my mom would take my brother and I to get shots when we were little, it was always like the agreement that she would get us Jack in the Box shakes afterwards. Like that was always our treat.
I mean, that sounds pretty great to me.
It was pretty great, but Flynn's just like knows what he wants, and that's time with his mom, and that's so cute.
Yeah. He knows what he wants, that's for sure.
Yes.
And he is not changing his mind.
Right. He's a precious boy, and I think that just follows suit in his personality. That's adorable. Now, Christy, we had met, like we mentioned earlier, by playing instruments together, and you are also a talented flautist, musician. Is that how you say it? Flautist?
It's actually, you can say it both ways.
You can say it both ways.
I've looked it up because I'm like, what is it?
Flautist kind of just sounds more fun to say.
It's fancier, right?
It is fancier, yes. And you play piccolo as well. So you play flute in the Pacific Coast Concert Band. How did you get started with music? I know you mentioned your dad's kind of had a past in your music passion. So how did you get started in that? And what does it mean to you to continue playing in the band?
Yeah, that's both really great questions. My dad has been playing guitar since I think he said he started when he was 28. And he is a phenomenal guitar player.
Okay.
Don't let him fool you. He'll tell you he's a hack. I'm like, stop. You're really good. He's so ridiculous. But it's fun because he he's always striving to be better, which
Okay.
is cool. I love that he has a true passion for music.
Okay.
Every day growing up, he'd be out in the garage practicing for like 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
Every day. He still does.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, it's just kind of neat. It's kind of cool to me that that's just stayed with him forever.
Is he in a band? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'll play in his band every once in a while too.
Awesome.
As a young child, I really wanted to play violin.
Uh-huh.
And they're very expensive.
They are.
My parents at that time, they had 3 kids.
Yeah.
And so they're like, ugh, can you pick something not that expensive? So I was like, sure. I mean, let's start on piano, right?
Uh-huh.
Equally as expensive if you get a real
Baby grand piano. Yeah, sure.
Dreams. A girl can dream. So we started with a weighted keyboard. That's
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So he set me up with lessons. There was actually a lady literally 6 houses down from
Wow.
our
Okay.
house that did piano lessons. So I went over there. I don't remember how often a week, but went over there for lessons. And I had been starting middle school. That's right. So I started middle school and I wanted to be in band. Mm-hmm. And my parents were like, okay, yeah, like let's sign you up. And the school was like, we don't have a piano. Like we don't need piano players.
Uh-huh. Cool. The last
yeah.
thing I was working for. Cool.
like,
I can't play it now.
Sweet. So they're like, pick a different instrument.
Uh-huh.
And as you know, in band in school, it's all the grades, right?
Yes.
So they had what grade is that? So 6th grade, all the 7th and 8th graders hold up their instruments to the 6th graders and be like, this is a whatever,
Yes.
right? And so I saw a tenor saxophone and an alto saxophone and a clarinet and a French horn and blah, blah, blah. And I think I wanted to play alto saxophone, but I didn't realize that that's what it was. I thought the alto was the tenor. And I thought that the French horn was an alto saxophone. Just
Classic mistake.
Yeah. They're so similar looking. So I told the teacher, I want to play tenor saxophone, right? He calls my parents later that night. He goes, hey, Christy mentioned that she wanted to play tenor. I think it's too big for her because I was a little tiny thing.
Okay.
And he goes, what about alto saxophone? My parents are like, yeah, let's ask. Like, hey, Christy, alto? And I was like, ew, I don't want to play that ugly thing because I thought it was a French horn, which is not an ugly instrument. The French horn's not ugly.
Right.
They have a beautiful sound.
They do.
When I didn't know anything about music, I thought it was ugly.
Well, and generally they're played beautifully when it's like when you're older than an 8th grader.
Yeah.
You can't really
Yes.
play a French horn beautifully when you're a 7th or 8th, unless
That's
you're
so
a
true.
prodigy. But
Right. Where are those? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at Woodland Park.
right.
And so I was like, no, I'll play clarinet. And the next day, it was either the next day or sometime that week because we still hadn't gotten our instruments figured out.
Yeah.
He calls back and he asks my parents, like, I can't remember. I'm so sorry. Was it clarinet or flute that Christy wanted to play? And my mom was like, Christy, flute or clarinet? And I was like, flute. And that's how I started playing flute.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We were so close to playing the same instrument.
I know.
Dang it.
So true. And I love the sound of a clarinet, and it's so versatile. You play blues, jazz, classical, anything.
Yeah.
And especially like a good jazz clarinet, that sound is just like buttery,
is.
right?
Yeah.
So I always kick myself like, I should have played clarinet. But hey, you know what? Flute's fine.
Our fate was decided so long ago
I
without
know.
us being able to control it. It's just so sad.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, someday I can teach you how to play clarinet, maybe. And then
I'm excited. I'll buy my own reeds.
Okay. Yeah.
We won't have to share.
I would share with you, Christy. If you're willing to share with me, I would share with you.
I would.
Yeah. And I remember too when I think my dad was encouraging my brother and I to choose another instrument. I think we were in high school, or maybe he said, if you were to play another instrument, what would it be? And funny enough, I said flute because I thought it was
we're meant to be friends.
I know, it's like
it only makes
kind of
sense.
weird, but then I remember I tried to play it like with all my heart. My lung capacity was nowhere near what it needed because when you play a reed instrument, it's kind of just like it's like less controlled air. Your diaphragm can kind of just like go for it. But I remember when I was playing flute, I would be so out of breath every time I would practice, and I'd be like, this is too hard. I don't want to do it. Flute, I feel like personally is, when I've tried it, is just requires such precision and effort. So that's why I gave up on it. But
I don't blame you. Honestly, it took me like 2.5, maybe even 3 weeks to get the embouchure down.
Yeah.
Like as a child, you can't get a sound out of a flute.
Right.
It's so hard.
It is.
So I don't know how I didn't give up, but I didn't.
Yeah. And you've played until this day. So that's great. I always look at adults, and especially when I was in the Palomar band, I would see elderly people like playing their instrument with joy and coming every single week. And I would look at them and be like, I commend you. Like, that is amazing that you are continuing your craft to this day. And honestly, I think that people who continue with their instruments late into life, like we said, it helps keep your mind sharp, and it helps to get you out of the house to do something and be around people who have similar interests. And I think that that was so great.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I love the band that I'm into.
Yeah.
People of every age, right? Aside from like under 18, pretty much.
Sure.
But it's refreshing to know that you can find a commonality with people that are way older than you or even way younger than you.
Yeah.
By just having this one thing in common, and it's music. Yep. And that can really spark some really cool friendships. And I feel like a lot of the flute players in our section are a little older than I am, and some significantly older than I am, but I love all of them. They're all so great.
Yeah.
When I was pregnant with Flynn, they held a baby shower for me. It was the most precious thing ever. Like I just felt so loved.
Yes.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, Christy, now going back a little bit to your day-to-day job, what is something that you wish more people would ask you about when it comes to your job, or maybe like women in the scientific field?
I think for women in the science field, at least at Thermo Fisher, I don't know for other companies, there are a lot of women leaders at Thermo Fisher Scientific, which is really cool. I think that kind of helps empower, right, all other women. And leaders and people just in general in high level roles that still stick to being the nicest people of all time. And I think it's just nice. It's humbling to know that like you don't have to be this like cutthroat, crazy person to get up there, right? And I think that really makes me feel better, because I'm not like that, and I don't think I could ever be like that. Sure, there's sometimes you have to drop the hammer, right? But it's not all about you and your career only, right? Like, you can focus on your career, and that's obviously very important. You're the person that's going to move yourself upward, right? But you can also seek help. And I think that really makes a difference to me. It's nice to know that you're not in it by yourself.
Sure.
For yourself, right?
I don't have many friends who are women in the science field. And I wonder if more people could agree with that too. I think that with a lot of schools focusing on STEM learning and having that be a big thing for younger kids, I'm hoping that will be more of an opportunity in the future for girls to explore science.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's really encouraging to hear that Thermo Fisher specifically has a lot of women in the leadership realm of the company. I'm sure that's encouraging for younger women to hear that are going through school and hoping to be in that role someday. And I think for a lot of women too, we find that still in today's age, like it's hard to climb the ladder and make it to a leadership role. And so even just in a field as competitive as science and lab work, I think that it's just overall encouraging to hear that you can do it if you work for it.
Yeah. And the other thing about biotech in general that I don't think a lot of people know is that it's not all lab, right?
Okay.
In fact, it's probably safe to say that a lot of those companies, like, business is a huge part of it.
Okay.
Right? You need that business administration to be able to run the labs. So even if you don't have a science background and you're interested in it, or you just, you want to help the world in some way or another, from like a scientific standpoint with no science background, you can still do biotech stuff, right? Like, you can do finance for biotech. There's supply chain, procurement. You can be a project manager. There's so many different things that you can do within biotech that don't necessarily require you to have like that specific science degree. That being said, it is helpful. It does help, right? Because if you wanted to move to a different role or whatever, it may be a different position, sometimes it requires that you have some kind of science background. Not always, but sometimes. And I think it's just nice to know, right? Like, there's a lot of flexibility within biotech. And it's not all about, it is, but it's not all about science.
Yeah, I think that's like other companies too. Like, if you're interested in that, but you don't have the experience, or maybe you're still in school for it, but you want to start with the company, I think that's great to know that there are other opportunities to just get you started, get your foot in the door, and work towards a leadership position once you have your degree or once you're more experienced. Because like you said earlier, it's kind of crazy how so many places are still on that bandwagon of, yeah, you can't get a job here unless you have experience. It's like, cool, I just graduated. Don't know how I'm going to get experience unless you hire me. Fun.
Yeah. And I didn't know this when I was in college. And also I had to work while I was in college to pay for life. So I didn't really have this opportunity. But if you have the opportunity to apply for an internship, so many biotech and biopharmas have internships available. Some of them are paid, some of them are unpaid.
Sure.
But at least you get that experience and you can network with people that you wouldn't normally have that chance to.
Totally.
That would hopefully help kind of, once you're done with school, maybe push you in the direction of getting that entry-level role. It helps to know people, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then you're kind of gaining that experience. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't always correlate exactly how, what you think you would do in the lab as an intern, but you can learn new things, learn how the things work. And I think that makes a big difference. Hey, I know how these systems work in this company. But if you have that little tiny like toe in the door, then I think you're maybe in a better spot to be able to get that entry level role.
Okay, that totally makes sense. That's super helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, can you, kind of going on that same realm there, can you share a story, a memorable story or experience from your work that has had a profound impact on you? Maybe just your entire time that you've been at the company. It doesn't have to be within this specific position you have now, but what's something memorable that you can look back on about your job?
I also have a master's degree, which isn't, you don't have to be in biotech, but it is nice. It was really more for me. Just to say that I have one, really. First person in my family to have a master's. Ooh. But in my master's program, we had to come up with our own thesis project, obviously. And I had worked on this specific assay in the lab.
Okay.
And I was very interested in how it works, right? So I looked up how the assay works, and it's not great.
Okay.
So basically, in layman's terms, I guess.
Yeah.
This is testing for what's called endotoxin.
Okay.
And it's something that can literally kill people if it's found in drugs, right?
Okay.
So it's very important to make sure that you don't have endotoxin if you're testing for something that you don't want, that you want to be sterile, right?
Okay.
So the way that they test it is rather archaic. And basically it's an assay that you use this reagent that's made from horseshoe crab blood, because their blood, their blood has this coagulant that whenever endotoxin is present, it just coagulates.
Wow.
So I was like, whoa, does that mean like a bunch of horseshoe crabs are dying all the time because we have to like siphon their blood?
Yeah.
And after like extensive research, there's no conclusivity that they're dying per se.
They're donating blood?
Yeah. But
Whoa.
the thing is like they get bled and then they get sent back into the ocean. It's like, who knows if they're actually living like the life expectancy that we thought they are.
Yeah.
And so me with my animal passions, I was like, this is not right. So for my thesis, I was like, okay, we have to figure out a way to move from a different test, like to a different testing method that's more, that's less animal, like derived.
Let's try not to involve the animals as much.
Yeah. Ended up finding out that there's a synthetic, like, part of the horseshoe crab blood that we make. Like, it's synthetic, and it does the same exact thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is perfect. So we wrote a business case for my thesis for my company to purchase one of these products that does this synthetic testing. And my capital pitch was approved, which was really cool. We have it, but the problem is there is a pharmacopoeia, the United States pharmacopoeia, that has like standards for their testing.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the horseshoe crab blood test is the gold standard, right?
I see.
So pretty much that's what the US does. The European pharmacopoeia has recently approved, it's called RFC testing as an alternative.
Okay.
So that's cool. It makes it that much easier to see if we can maybe have that in our future. Yeah. That being said, like it's probably a little bit far out unless we have some people like from sustainability working on that, which kind of goes above and beyond what I do.
Sure.
I'd love to do that, but maybe not at this time.
Sure.
However, I think that was something that was kind of profound to me in my career because I could link my school with my work.
Yeah.
And kind of start making a difference.
Yeah.
And the company that we purchased this instrument from actually holds a global seminar thing every year for RFC testing. And they were like, hey, do you want to speak on this? And I was like, sure. And it was really scary, but it was cool.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I definitely was not at the same level as a lot of the scientists that were speaking in the panel. I was like, I don't know what you're saying, but it was a really, really cool experience.
Wow.
And yeah, I felt like that was kind of, it was just nice because it made me feel like now my voice is heard globally. Like we need to save the animals.
Yes.
And so, yeah,
that's
that
amazing.
Cool.
I didn't know that. That's so cool that you did that.
Yeah, that was last year.
Wow.
I didn't tell a lot of people because I was embarrassed.
Is it recorded? I want to listen to it.
It is. I'll try to find it for you.
Okay. I'm going to listen to it, and maybe Christy will let me link it in the show notes for people to listen to, because I think that's really interesting. I mean, I'm hoping that people who are listening today are interested in the science field and might find that research really interesting. That's super cool that you did that. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Well, kind of still talking about your job, who or what is something that inspires you the most in your life, and how do you stay motivated to pursue your passions and responsibilities, especially since you are a mom, you're a wife, you're a working mom, and you do have a lot of things that you're passionate about, but you've always been someone to do them kind of no matter what, because you're like, this is my time, I like doing this, I'm going to do it. So who or what gets you motivated to do that stuff?
My husband is really, really good about making sure that I have my own like me time. And I hope that he feels that I'm good about making sure he has his own me time, or him time, I should say, not me, him time. So yeah, I mean, there's just kind of this unspoken agreement on Thursday nights. It's banned. Like, that's just,
I'm going to be gone for a couple hours. Yeah.
I'll see you later. You know, give me a hug and a kiss. Bye.
Right.
So that's cool. Flynn still is like, Mama, why are you leaving? And then I'm like, should I just stay home? But I'm like, I will come give you a kiss while you're asleep. And it's, you know, it's only once a week. So not too bad.
Yeah. So your family gives you the motivation to, you know, spend time with them, but also I'm sure get time for yourself. And it is really nice when your partner is willing to give you that space and time. Especially if like you get really lucky when everyone agrees, like, I do need my own space and my own time, and we're just going to take it when we need it.
Yep.
But it is good to kind of also have someone I've found to like force you to take that time, especially since you have so many things going on. I'm sure Nick is good at being like, hey, you seem like you're stressed out. Like, what can I do to create space for you to get some time to read your book? Or where can we go so that you can get relaxed and spend that time with us so that you can do those things? That's great.
It really is. Yeah. It's definitely a blessing.
That's awesome. So being a working mom can be incredibly challenging, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners can agree with. How do you balance your professional responsibilities with your family life? I know you talked a little bit about your schedule being like a little bit hectic, and you do have to make time to clean and cook and take care of them. But I guess, how do you balance that? And maybe what do you find yourself doing when that line can become blurred a little bit?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. You definitely need to create a routine for yourself.
Okay.
So on a day-to-day, Nick now, he works in the office. I don't think I've told you this.
Okay.
But yeah, so he's not out on the field anymore. He's in the office.
Got it.
Which actually kind of works out for us because we leave for work at the same time now.
Great.
Instead of him leaving at like 4 a.m. and then I have to get Flynn ready by myself, blah, blah, blah.
I remember that was a struggle for you, like your time difference of leaving.
It's definitely, it's hard.
Sure.
So him being a man, it doesn't take quite as long for him to get ready in the morning as it does for me. So he usually will help Flynn get dressed and, you know, make sure he's brushing his teeth, blah, blah, blah. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Then I can focus on hurrying to get ready in the morning. And then I've made a concerted effort to make sure that as a family, we all walk Squee in the morning before we leave.
Oh, fun. Okay.
So, and she's old, so she really can only walk for like 10 minutes.
Sure.
So we'll all get ready, put on our shoes, take Squee for a walk. And then since Flynn just started kindergarten literally down the street from our house, Nick has been generally dropping him off, but sometimes we just go together. Okay. Drop Flynn off, and then we take our separate ways to work.
Sure.
And then the after school stuff, sometimes it's crazy. If I have a long day at work, I'll call Nick and be like, can you pick Flynn up, please? I can't right now. But mostly I pick him up, and then we'll get home. You know, I make dinner, we hang out, and then we do bedtime routine.
Sure.
So, I think like, and this is leading into your second part of the question. We have to make sure that we shop for groceries on the weekend, because if I shop on the weekdays, then I don't have time to cook dinner, you know, that in a time that we would put Flynn to bed on time.
Yeah.
And if you don't have kids, putting your kid to bed at their specific bedtime is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, they're not going to bed.
Sure.
They're just going to keep coming into your room every 10 minutes and asking you questions and I need this and I need that. And it's like, go to bed. So
no, you don't. You don't need that.
Exactly. And then they're grumpy the next day because they didn't get enough sleep.
They don't understand that connection yet.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you're maybe a younger married couple, you just go to bed whenever and you kind of just do whatever whenever.
Yeah.
It's so nice. Having a child makes you plan ahead.
Sure.
If you're not someone that, you know, in life you already do that.
Yeah.
I'm a very fly by the seat of my pants type of person for the most part when it comes to like vacations and just anything, right? Like I don't want to be rushed and I don't want to have to plan out my entire day, right?
Yeah.
Like let's just do it whenever.
Yeah.
So with a child, a little bit different.
Sure.
Gotta plan stuff. You know, you have
Takes
birthday
routines
parties
to the next level.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that honestly, it helps. Like, it helps me become more organized, like just in my personal life and at work.
Okay.
So was kind of a blessing in disguise. But yeah, basically when things become blurred is like, if we don't shop for groceries on time and I don't have the dinners planned out for the coming week, then it kind of gets a little bit crazy.
Sure.
Things start getting put off and
pick up McDonald's on the way home because there's no way I'm going to make dinner in time. Yeah,
exactly. So there's,
Okay, routines
Costco,
are important.
Yeah, routines are important. Costco,
On
just
the
get
weekend.
a bunch of...
bunch of stuff for the week.
Get a bunch of stuff for the week. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Christy. I'm sure that's encouraging to a lot of parents to not only hear that they're not alone in being like, yeah, I prefer to do whatever, to have a more relaxed environment, but sometimes that's just not the reality of things. So I'm sure that's really encouraging to other moms to hear that. So on to the next question here. According to a report done by the National Science Foundation, which I'll link in the show notes in case anybody wants to read it, compared with women, men make up the greater share of the STEM workforce. In 2021, about 2/3, that's 65%, of those employed in STEM occupations were men, and about 1/3, 35%, were women. Now, consistent with women's faster growth than men's in the STEM workforce, the proportion of the STEM workforce that were women increased by 3 percent points from 2011 to 2021. So from your perspective as a woman who works in a STEM field, what factors do you think have contributed to the growing presence of women in STEM fields over that period of time?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say maybe just the fact that there seems to be more focus in STEM in colleges now.
Okay.
I think that a lot of women that are interested in science, maybe they see other science figures that are women, like on TV, or, their parents are, whatever it may be, kind of get that inspiration, and then they pursue that instead of something different that they may have pursued, in a previous life. A lot of it might be social media, TV, whatever. And then just the fact that there's so many options in college.
Okay. Yeah, you said there were a lot of concentrations you could have gone in with your degree.
Yeah. And so, and you can find, if you're interested in one thing or two things or whatever it may be, you can find something within those STEM programs in a school. So
I
think that may have something to do with it.
Yeah, I think that the opportunities for kids to see science introduced in kind of like a fun way. I think that a lot of times schools have tried to use STEM programs to show that science can be used outside of class. It's not just about the equations. Like we can do fun experiments outside of class. And I'm sure that it is a lot of the times you do have to use the math that you learn in science in your job, but also there are fun elements of it. There are things that you can tie to your passions, like your passion for animal advocacy. So I think that those programs have had a really big impact on just women finding their space in the science field. And it's just encouraging to see that more and more women are going into the field and like getting leadership positions like you are. So that's fantastic. So what advice would you give to a woman who's considering a career in the science field?
I would say know what you're talking about, but it's okay to not know stuff. In fact, I think that the more honest people are, the better chance they have of getting somewhere, right? But it's always good to, so if you're already in the STEM field and you're looking to move up in your career, it is so important to, first of all, know what you want to do.
Yeah.
So like you maybe have to have like a moment of reflection because, for example, when I tell my team, hey, how can I help you get to where you would like to be? A lot of the times, or at least when I first started out as a leader, and I've kind of tailored my questions to make a difference, I think. But when I first started out as a leader, I didn't know exactly how to ask those kind of questions.
Okay.
And people would just say, well, I just want to be a whatever, or I just want to move up to the next role. And that's great. But, you need to think 2 to 3 steps ahead.
Okay.
To be able to get to, to be able to get to that very next role that you're looking at, you need to map out what it is that you want to do. Why do you want to get to that role? Because what's afterward, right?
Sure.
So for example, I thought that I wanted to be a senior manager for a long time, and I've kind of been along that trajectory. But I've recently this year kind of decided, hey, you know what? Project management seems kind of cool, and product management seems really cool. So that's kind of like a step up from project management. And so now I'm kind of pursuing like, hey, how do I become a product manager?
Okay.
So I'm taking project management courses right now. I'm
Very
almost
cool.
done. Thank God.
Just continue getting another master's, Christy.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, why did I sign up for school? I hate this.
It's not as fun as you remember it until you get back into it and you're like, this is terrible.
It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I told my manager this. I'm looking, I'd like to be in strategic project management so that I can get the experience to become a product manager and see if I like that. So, and so my manager at the time, they actually just left. But they were like, okay, let's see what we can do to get you on some projects. And so that right there, perfect example of here is my goal. Here's what I think will help me get to that goal. If you need help with helping you get to that goal, that's a different story. And that's always something that your manager should be able to support you in.
Sure.
If they can't, go to someone else. Find a mentor.
Okay.
Mentors are super important. I have like 5.
Okay.
For all different roles in biotech and even some outside of biotech, because it's just good to get that firsthand view of something else that you wouldn't normally think of doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, I think that that's important.
Sure.
Knowing what you want, getting a mentor. And if you don't know what you want, there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But ask if you can shadow someone.
Yeah. Like voice your wants.
Right.
If you want to move into that next level, sometimes you do have to like tell someone this is what I want to do, because hopefully your manager, like you said, would want to help give you those next steps, because they should know that since those steps are probably what got them there.
Right.
And I think that could be hard for some women, especially since, like you said, if you're not a cutthroat person, you're not going to try to beat someone to a job. That's not your first instinct. But knowing how important it is to voice your intent to take a next step in the direction that you want to go is important. That you're like standing up for yourself and you're voicing what you want.
Yeah, that's way better said than I did. So, but just tell someone your career development wants and needs, right?
Yeah.
And it's so important. You can't do it by yourself.
Sure.
I can't stress that enough. Like, it is okay to ask for help. In fact, like, I encourage it. I think that especially in science, collaboration is key. That's what science is.
Well, Christy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I think that just your story of passion and work through the years of like seeing what things you're interested in and not letting certain things hold you back from pursuing them has just been inspiring for me, and I hope it's been inspiring for other people. It's so clear that your dedication and passion shine through in everything that you do. Your journey is truly inspiring, and I know that our listeners will gain so much from your experiences and insights. So thank you so much for being on today. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This has been super great, and I'm really excited. I hope that this helps people that are interested in science, especially women interested in science. Yes. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, more than welcome.
Yes, there you go. I will put Christy's LinkedIn in the show notes if you're interested. And so to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of More Precious Than Rubies. Remember, every woman's story is a testament to the strength and resilience that we all possess. So keep striving, keep inspiring, and keep being the remarkable person that you are. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tune in next time as we continue to explore the lives of remarkable women. Until then, you're worth far more than rubies. Set about your work vigorously with arms strong for your tasks. Open your arms to the poor and extend your hands to the needy. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.